Council's role in affordable housing. Staff. Okay, yep. Hey? It might be.
I thought I might do some phone calls.
Can you just lock the door? No, just joking. Okay, so there are some supplementary. There's a supplementary resolution that has been worked on. Yeah.
Maybe if I just introduce this one. This report was deferred last week to enable staff to present you with more information because we believed that we hadn't given you sufficient information to make the decision to make a decision. In looking at it further, we've actually come up with a suggested set of resolutions which will take us forward. And unless anybody would like to add any background to the why or the wherefore, maybe Caroline Gallagher would, we could put up these staff recommendations for your consideration.
Right, thank you. So the reason that these resolutions, as Jane has said, have been written like this is to address some of the discussions and the issues that have been raised since the report has been prepared. So the first resolution, first, second and third resolutions there that we have written relate to Wells and Colombo. We can get on and do this, so let's do it.
Copy. Do we have a hard copy of this? Like, it's incredibly hard to see all of that.
Right, so I could would you like me to read out the resolution?
Yeah, but I think having a hard copy. I mean, we may have to defer this till after lunch. So.
Okay. So the first three resolutions relate to the sale of Wells and Colombo, and we think that we can get on with that independently of the report and the SCP. The fourth resolution relates to social housing, and here we're saying is that we have undertaken extensive analysis, both from a policy and from a financial analysis relating to all of the options open for our social housing portfolio, and that we're saying here is that we can produce a statement of proposal by the 12th of May, and we can demonstrate in that proposal that we can go out for consultation around future use of our social housing portfolio. In option, in the fifth resolution, the fifth one there, and also that's option, resolution 5. Resolution 6 talks to the issues that have been raised subsequent to the report being written, and this relates to the affordable housing entity. Specifically, we still need to do further analysis relating to the financial, legal and governance understandings of the affordable entity. So we need to do more work around this. So what we are requesting here is that staff be tasked with investigating, as part of the development of the proposal, whether or not one or more entities should be established to take a long-term interest in the management of social and or affordable housing, and that this work includes possible structure, financial requirements and governance arrangements for such entity or entities. And then the final resolution that we have put there, number 7, is that separately to this work on relating to a statement of proposal, that council request staff to prepare advice on the consultation process to be undertaken in respect of the housing accord with the Crown and an affordable housing policy, and such advice to be considered at the next meeting of council. Next week, yes. So there's a lot of complexity in here, and so I think we're more than happy to go through each of these resolutions and expand on them for you.
We have changed the sign-off on the sale of Wells in Colombo has to be through the council, so we've just changed that through the Finance Committee to council, and then Finance Committee and council.
Right.
Yep. Does anyone want to move the motion? Are you?
If I'm going to move it, I'd like to slightly amend it, if I may, and that's that within it's probably covered, but it's somewhat vague. So I'd like also that staff be asked for a further report on the options for financing the new entity or entities, to also include, as well as what's already in the report, either monies or a loan from the Capital Endowment Fund, or the transfer of some housing assets, especially those that need redevelopment, or a mix of those options, and also any possible tax issues. It's probably covered in 5, but I just want to be really clear that we need this. I'm okay with pretty much this happening in terms of if it comes back to the council on the 12th of May.
So that's not next week, that's actually the following Monday. Yeah.
That's right.
It's 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the issue about whether we actually need to go out for public consultation on that, on some aspects of the affordable housing policy, we will have the previous week.
Yeah.
Yep.
In terms of the work in the Accord, I think actually government has been very good to work with on this. What they can see and what we can see is that if we are going to actually make an impact on social housing or affordable housing, and the line is actually very, very blurred, even though I understand that they have different definitions, but it's actually defined by the tenant now after the 14th of April, then we actually have to do something. And this is a raft of initiatives, which means that there is some action, some concerted action being taken in the city to provide solutions, particularly for rental housing, which we don't have solutions for at the moment. It addresses also the issue of the current unsustainability of the City Council's social housing. If we look at our current model post-earthquake of council social housing and our need to redevelop and rebuild so many of those units, we cannot do it from within our current resources. We absolutely have to do something different. We don't have a choice on that, and we don't have a lot of time on that either, if you look at the housing account. It also addresses for us the issue that this council, I think, has been trying to address for some years, and that is to access the government's market rents policy in terms of what they top up on top of what the tenant pays. So only councils don't qualify for that. Housing New Zealand, as I understand, does, and every other community housing provider. But city councils are somehow exempt. And as the second largest landlord in the country, that makes a huge difference to us. So the creation of the new entity or entities, which is allowed for in the Housing Accord, allows the City Council, through this entity that it doesn't control 50% of, to access that. Doesn't impact on the tenant, it does impact on the rent received on units, and potentially on the rent received on 2,000 units. It means that we have some of the wherewithal to be able to do new stuff. In terms of the debate on the 50 million from CCHL, I don't actually mind if it's 50 million or 30 million or 20 million or whatever. This organisation needs to be resourced so that it can do, with government, with the community housing sector and with the private sector, a joined up approach to actually dealing with what I think is a housing crisis in Christchurch at the moment, and I don't think we can deny the severity of the issue. But I have no problem if this does not come from CCHL. I totally understand the financial constraints of this council. That's why I'd like us to look at perhaps a loan or a grant from the Capital Endowment Fund. I understand the restrictions around that, but it does mean that we don't pay bank interest rates. It means that we simply have the loss of interest on that. There is a mistake in the document, by the way, on page 330, where it talks about that 50 million and suggests in paragraph 11.4 that the cost 3 years out is 2.66% on rates. If you look at the maths, 2.3%, it's 2.3 million is not 2.6% of rates. It's about 0.66%, less than 1%. However, if we can do it by perhaps transferring some assets from social housing into this new entity so it has sufficient grant, that's fine too. All we need to do is get on and make something happen in regards to housing in Christchurch. So I'm fine with these amendments so long as we can incorporate looking at differing finance options as well, and I'll give this amendment to Jane. And the... Oh, sorry.
The advice we provide on options for financing
Yes, that's very good. And also possible tax issues which have been raised. That's absolutely fine, yes.
So you're moving that motion?
Just before I speak, just have a question of clarification too. I understand with the amendments that Vicky's putting forward, we would take out number 4 and replace it with a new amendment? Okay.
And it with a statement of proposal that's ready to go on the 13th of May. Isn't that right, Ian? Thank you.
I just want to speak, if I may. Not.
I think the whole proposal is huge, but I wouldn't be comfortable taking that. I think we actually need to look at that option.
Okay, so we're going to break for lunch. Why don't we come back then at half past 1, so that people can have time to have lunch and then get back here. All right?